It's not the happy, cheery, go lucky, lively edition of the Kaufman Corner podcast that we were hoping for coming into tonight. Instead, it's the downtrodden, but still hopeful podcast as the Royals drop game number 3 of this AL divisional series. We're going to break it down right now with you, as always, a good doctor, Dr. Rany Jazayerli. I'm Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB. We will get into a number of subjects here. First of all, they just didn't quite have enough, and they certainly didn't have enough for Giancarlo Stanton. 9 walks, too many again. Lugo not particularly sharp in this one. Some close but no cigar moments for the lineup. In the end, it's the Yankees 2-1. They lead going into game 4 tomorrow. We talk about it right now. Oh, yeah, and we've got a special guest, the most popular man in Kansas City, will join us here shortly. Yes, it's the Kaufman Corner podcast, and it starts right now.
This is the Kaufman Corner Podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Royals, breaking down the Royals like no one else can. Kaufman Corner is hosted by Rany Jazayerli and Soren Petro. Rany is a co-founder of Baseball Prospectus, author of Rany on the Royals, and former columnist for Grantland, The Ringer, and The Athletic. Soren is the award-winning afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. Kaufman Corner is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are your hosts, Rany Jazayerli and Soren Petro.
All right, Rany, not the game we wanted to have, 2-0. I was quite worried. In fact, the way Seth Lugo was fiddling around, I was very worried. Even before that, 2-2, I was quite optimistic that maybe this was simply a team of destiny, but in the end, a Giancarlo Stanton home run. Too much for the boys in blue to overcome. Where's your sadness on the 1 to 10 scale right now?
No, we're rating sadness now on a numerical scale.
Sure.
I mean, I'm sad, but defiant. How's that?
Okay.
Because on the one hand, this game was weird because on the one hand, you felt like the Royals were so close to at least tying this game. If a couple of different things change, you could have seen them going to the ninth inning tied or possibly winning, but they also were very close to being down 4 or 5 runs. I mean, they were lucky in some ways to be just a run down. The Yankees played better tonight. That it hurts to admit that, but the Yankees didn't play that great, but like the Royals walked 9 batters. They got a very crucial check swing call on Aaron Judge to end the was it the 7th inning, which immediately preceded what it turned out to be the go ahead home run, the winning home run by Stanton. So they kind of did this to themselves. And on the other hand, it's like they got 2 runs from with 2 outs and nobody on base, and the number 8 hitter coming up. Like the 8 and 9 hitters set up the game tying rally. And those are the only 2 runs they got in the game. They needed 1 more run, and they were never able to get it from the top of the lineup. So they can look in the mirror for this one, but at the same time, they're playing the Yankees so close. You feel like, they still got a very good shot to get back into this tomorrow.
Yeah, you want to believe, and they have. They've been toe-to-toe, but that's also kind of how the regular season went, and the Yankees won that series as well. You felt like they had everything they needed to get it done in the regular season and would just keep coming up short. So this has looked a lot like that, just reincarnate. We'll see if it can change for game 4. Do you want to introduce our mystery guest?
So our not so mysterious guest has been my friend, my best friend in baseball, and my frenemy for 30 years since we first met while we were in college in 1992, I guess it was. And he is a Yankee fan. Despite that, we have managed to maintain our friendship all these years, but our friendship has never been tested like it's being tested this week, because the Royals and the Yankees have never played in the postseason since we met. It's my good friend, co-founder of Baseball Prospectus with me. It's Joe Sheehan.
There he is. dancing.
Fellas, did you see that baseball game? Was that not a great game of baseball? That was a phenomenal game. You got to be happy. Oh, wait.
Soren, this was a bad idea. All right, let's.
I want to point out this was your idea.
I know.
Listen, look. You guys know, Randy. You and I have been studying baseball for more than 30 years, and I think what you have to, speaking sabermetrically about what we saw tonight, I think you can see the effects of a fan base that has just a superior moral fiber and character, and how it can bring a team to victory in a 3-2 in a close game on a night that didn't play very well.
I knew exactly where you were going with that, Joe. Yep.
Yeah.
Superior more. Let's talk after the series is over. We're already in a run here.
I'm just gonna this is my highlight. I don't know what's gonna happen the next 2 days. No, look, I don't think either team played very good baseball tonight. We'll say 1 for 11 combined with runners scoring position. Some of the defense was a little sloppy. I think the Royals walked 9 guys. We keep waiting for Aaron Judge and Bobby Witt, and Bobby Witt finally got a single. So I guess he leads in the superstar debate. Didn't love, obviously, the 2 runs you guys got were, am I allowed to say lucky after we had the conversation the other day, Soren? I believe the expected batting average on the 2 hits was like a combined 240. So, they got the 2 runs, and of course Stanton with the big, and that's what you expect. We knew we were going to be talking about a power speed right-handed hitter in this series. It just turned out to be Giancarlo Stanton.
Yeah. By the way, should we boo Joe like Jazz Chisholm, Travis asked? Yes, you should. Everybody should be booing Joe at home right now. Here, Buccaneers. Yes, boo the hell out of him.
I would like to say we don't boo him because, as Jazz Chisholm was quoted as saying after the game, I ain't ever seen anybody boo a bum. So maybe the best thing we can do to Joe is ignore him.
Hey, you invited me on here.
How about this one, Curtis? Shut up, Joe. Thanks for nothing, Randy. That's great. I've studied baseball for 30 years, and it's taught me to hate the Yankees. I was like that one. There's always great comments in here, but listen, I mean, they're fairly evenly matched teams, but this is something. Joe, we were chatting a little bit beforehand that Joe was saying that. Man, the listeners of the radio show, not big fans. I'm like, well, you come on and basically go Jazz Chisholm on them. Like, what do you expect? Right? Like we got stuck on a bit of a semantic point about whether or not, JJ Piccolo was the executive of the year. And you like, I think the thing that set people off was like, Joe kept saying, well, you got to sign stars. You got to sign stars. And Royals fans have been conditioned to like those big payrolls. Like there's a limit to how much they signed their star. They signed Bobby Witt Jr. And I think it just speaks to, it's why I always, I come away enjoying the conversation, but feeling no different every time I talk to you about these teams. Cause the New York mindset is just spend more. And there's no comprehension of the fact that there are limits someplace. And I think the just spend more mindset is what won this game. I mean, they can take Giancarlo Stanton, a guy who's not worth the money he's paid, and slot him in because they can splash around that kind of cash. By the way, I told you so, Rany. When we talked about this series coming in, I mentioned Giancarlo Stanton. You're like, it's Judge and Soto. I'm like, I think you gas up to go through those two, and you have a tendency to think I can let down against Giancarlo Stanton, and he can still punish you.
What happened? This game is, like Joe was saying, it played so much to type, where the Royals got their runs with a double and a triple, speed, balls in the corners, and then Giancarlo Stanton hits the ball. And I mean, off the bat, I certainly thought that ball maybe is too high.
No, I did not.
Okay, well, my first split second before I remembered, it's Giancarlo Stanton, right? The launch angle was 35 degrees, which is high, but when you hit the ball 112.9 miles an hour exit velo, it doesn't really matter. Get this, 112.9. Vinny Pasquantino in his entire career has never hit a ball 112.9 miles an hour. And what's wild is that wasn't the hardest ball Giancarlo Stanton hit tonight. His double was 114.1. And that wasn't the hardest hit ball of the game because Aaron Judge's line drive that Bobby Witt caught in the first inning was 114.4. Like, this is the Yankees' advantage in a nutshell, right? They're paying a guy, yes, that they developed and came through their farm system, but was a free agent. They gave him $40 million a year to be the best player in baseball. And then they acquired and then gave way too much money to a guy, Giancarlo Stanton, who even in his decline phase is one of the consistently hardest hitters of a baseball in probably in baseball history. Like exit velos of that caliber, there's a handful of guys in the majors who can do it, and they happen to have two of them on the Yankees. One of them burned the Royals badly today.
Yeah. I mean, what's your view of why this game went the way it did, Joe? By the way, you're
So
quite popular on the podcast here as well.
which one of you is setting up the GoFundMe for John Sherman? Was that Rany? Was that going to be you? Because I mean, obviously there's a money issue. You guys are pointing to the payroll, and poor John Sherman just can't keep up. I think it's funny you mentioned the home run, Rany, because that's not what Giancarlo Stanton does. He hits rockets. I think about watching Gary Sheffield, when I was younger, or Dave Winfield before that.
Yeah, you're right. He still hits. They said that today on the broadcast that he still hits the ball as hard as he ever did. He just doesn't hit it as often as he did.
Right.
But the home run tonight was atypical for him. It was more of a moonshot than
Right.
that's
why I think I got my hopes up that he didn't get all of it, because he doesn't normally hit them like that.
But no, obviously was the big blow in the ball game. I guess we're going to draw it all back to payroll. I mean, that was, even at the time, I didn't love that trade. I mean, it was after the 18 season, I think they traded for him. They didn't give much of a package.
I didn't love it either. I'm like, giving the Yankees one of the best sluggers in baseball.
Yeah, but even
though I know the contract's no good, I knew it was going to be bad under the contract, but it doesn't matter for the Yankees because that doesn't cripple their ability to go ahead and sign Garrett Cole afterwards and do those kind of things. So for them, it's still a fine signing. They can afford to overpay for guys.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, we want to reduce this all to payroll. I mean, one of the things we know is that if you look through recent postseason history, there's just no correlation between payroll and performance. We know there's no regular season correlation. We've talked about this for years. So,
I just love how there's no correlation. Yeah, I don't know, the top 6 payrolls in baseball, they're in the playoffs.
Okay, that this year. I mean, the Mets.
The
Angels typically aren't in the playoffs.
It is trending even. It is trending even
more.
The
Yankees weren't in the playoffs last year.
It is trending even more that the top payrolls. Listen,
the Royals are in the playoffs, and they have a $979 plus tax or something. Is what they're paying their players. They pay them in coupons, right? I mean, the way you guys make it sound, they have literally no money.
I mean,
commissary script.
Well, ultimately, look, whatever it took to get into the series and money or not, like. Right now, what it cost the Royals here wasn't just the $32 million guy hit a home run. It's again that their offense has been DOA for this really the whole postseason. And they walked.
They had a great offseason.
Whoa! No,
Adam
it was
Frazier,
31. Hang on,
listen,
the $31 million guy walked in front of the $32 million guy who drove him in. Like, let's don't act. I won't. There's only so much shit I'll take. Like, I'm going to tell you right now, like, it matters. Like, and I think it's farcical to act like it doesn't. And is that the only thing that happened? No, there was a baseball game that was played. There were pitches that were left up. There were 9 walks for the Royals. They burned through too many guys. Yes, there's all kinds of baseball stuff. I think the problem in getting to it is just the zero acknowledgement that it helps to be able to splash around cash. Like, there's no acknowledgement from you, Joe, that even affects it, that these are 2 evenly matched opponents. Yeah, everything is a level playing field. And I think that's what irks people. And it gets tough to get by and get on to anything else when it's not like, yes, it helps to be able to. Because Aaron Judge's contract is going to suck when it's all said and done because he's 30 some odd years old and there's going to be all kinds of dead money in the back end of it. But again, they can afford to do that. That is a distinct advantage.
The Yankees pay more in revenue sharing than they do to the top 3 players on their payroll. I don't know what more we can do with this. I mean, we're the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Cubs. These teams are putting $70-80 million a year into other teams' pockets. So that's the system we have right now. You talk sometimes like it's 2002 before all of these systems were put in place. Revenue sharing is in place now. There is an enormous amount of money being transferred from the top revenue teams to the lower revenue teams. It's not the system I would design, but I acknowledge it, and I acknowledge that it has had benefits. Think about what the Brewers have been able to do. You think about what the Royals have been able to do. I mean, I teach my daughter all the time. You be generous with the people who don't have as much, and that's what the Yankees do. I'm joking about that part, but seriously, guys, all things equal. But look at what the Yankees did at the back end of the game tonight. In fact, even if you want to include Clark Schmidt, I think the pitchers who pitched for the Yankees tonight are paid something like $7 million this year total.
I agree, and that was my point about where I was going on the payroll part. Is I think the smart teams now have the math and they're doing things like it used to be. We would do this pretty regular on where the playoff teams, when there were 10 playoff teams, and usually 4 would come out of the top 10 payrolls, 4 would come out of the middle 10, and 2 would come out of the bottom. Right.
Good baseball players make more money than bad baseball players.
Yeah. Now there is a shift to like the lower 10, which is kind of more in like the 15 to 25 range, has a lot of teams. And that's there again this year. The Royals at 20, the Guardians 21, 22. I'd have to get my sheet out here. But like 20, 21, 22, and 23 in payroll are all in. There's kind of the shift, but it's also you pay a price. You're not in it every single year because you go through a down period like the Royals did where you got to kind of suck and reload it, where the bigger payrolls stay on top. But I do think that, like the Mets made a lot of really bad decisions, but they, in some ways bought their way past it. But I mean, I do think it is getting harder to fight it. But let's talk about the baseball part, right? Because the payrolls, you and I are never going to agree.
Well, I was going to say the galling thing when you mentioned the pitching stuff. What's galling is, of course, seeing Luke Weaver turn into the closer. In both of the Yankee wins in this series, Luke Weaver, who barely 2 years ago, the Royals acquired him. They traded at the deadline, a team that was about to lose 100 games, traded a prospect, essentially, to Emmanuel Rivera to get him, to try and fix him. And I mean, in retrospect, clearly there was something there, right? Like that's the thing. And he had a year and a half left on his club control. And they actually released him 2 months later. They would put him on waivers. They didn't even keep him around for the final year of club control. But obviously there was a lot, there was a really good pitcher underneath all of that rust. And so we can talk about the Yankees' financial advantages all we want. They figured out how to turn Luke Weaver into a dominant reliever in the postseason against the Royals. Like short of Ryan O'Hearn, like hitting 5 home runs in the wild card round, this is like the most galling thing that could happen.
Jacob Junis throwing a no-hitter against him,
Yeah, that
it didn't work out with Weaver, but Soren, you and I talked about this a little bit the other day. The Royals are slowly becoming one of these teams.
Yes,
they're becoming a team that makes the players better. And it takes a while. I mean, there's also a lot of churn that happens with that. But I look at this bullpen, and all of a sudden you've got Daniel Lynch, and you've got Chris Bubich, and John Schreiber is a Roogie. We used to call it Loogie Roogie. I mean, they have to get 3 outs now, but he's the guy I don't want facing Judge at any point. And that matchup I hate in this series. Like the Royals are slowly getting players and making them and getting the most out of them. I think we talked about that with the rotation this year. Developing Singer, God, Randy, we watched him close up 2 years ago at Kaufman. And you saw one of his best starts up until that point. He turned into a legit mid-rotation starter. I think they've maxed out the value of Cole Reagans. With the time of the trade, I was telling you the other day, I think I called him a potential number 5, which is just missing by like 4 spots in the rotation. This is what I'm saying. And they got to work on the hitter. I mean, they're just not good at signing, developing, identifying. I mean, nothing is Bobby Witt, but it doesn't take a lot to figure out that Bobby Witt's going to be good at baseball. He was the 2nd pick in the draft. But they've got to get better on that side. Because right now, this is about as unbalanced a good team as there is in baseball. But they're getting better at the Luke Weaver stuff. And it's, that's going to make more of a difference. And you're going to disagree with me. Doing that and getting these 2-win players for $700,000 is going to do a lot more for the Royals than an extra $100 million on the payroll. It just will.
Yeah. And I mean, that, like you said, they're doing this now, which is why it's kind of galling. Luke Weaver never got a chance to work with the current, administration. Right. And we're starting to see that now more. To me, as much as the offensive development is the problem, I mean, this series has been a clinic in the importance of plate discipline and what happens when one organization has taught its hitters to take pitches that are outside the strike zone and done a much better job of it than the other. I mean, the Royals have 21 walks in this series so far? Some crazy number, 8, 5, and I think 9 today. So
9 tonight, yeah.
So not actually 22. 21 or 22 walks in 3 games. And we can argue about how the Royals pitchers need to throw more strikes, but like that is a hitter stat too. I mean, Juan Soto walked and scored in this game. Juan Soto is the most patient hitter in baseball. I mean, whoever had the most walks, notwithstanding, Judge may have had more simply because nobody wants to pitch to the guy with 58 homers. But like Juan Soto is one of the most patient hitters of this century. And the Royals just have nobody like that. And you hope that if there's a takeaway from this series, that the Royals will really look at at the value of developing, of teaching it. Because you can't look, Salvador Perez is who he is. You're not going to teach Salvador Perez to take pitches. In fact, it's impressive this year. He set a career high with, I think, 35 unintentional walks. But like you're starting to see glimmers in the minors because Carter Jensen and Blake Mitchell, who are probably their 2 of their 3 best hitting prospects, are very patient. But really, that's the thing that I'm taking away from this series. I mean, the Royals could have easily given up a lot more runs because they walked 9 guys. Only one of them actually scored.
I think they've got to identify it in the market too. I mean, I don't want to reopen this, but I do want to say that when you're signing Frazier and Renfroe and Hampson, you're basically throwing out the entire idea of getting guys who get on base.
I think that comes around to, we discussed that after you were off the air the other day, that, you know, I don't disagree that you should not be going out and signing those players, but I don't disagree with them signing them where they were, because what they really needed was pitching, and they knew it, and they spent the bulk of their money. They had about $40 million, whether you like that or
No, I get it.
The GM had about $41 or $2 million to spend, and he spent it on the pitching first and foremost, and then did what he could with the bats. And I said, look, what's got to happen? They've got to get better in Latin America. Sam McDowell, the columnist for the Kansas City Star, wrote a great piece talking about how that right now that's what the front office is working on, is overhauling and getting more of the analytics into their Latin American scouting and developing, and that they're behind on that. And which I love that JJ Picollo would admit that to Sam McDowell, because it shows confidence that he knows where to go, right? If you're not sure what you're doing, you act like, no, we got it all. We got all the numbers. We have everything everybody else does. And he's admitted, here's another place where we're going to get even better. But if they can develop their own, like, that's why Nick Lofton needs to be a decent player, right? He doesn't have to be like, if Christian Colon could have been a utility player, even for as high as he was picked, it would have alleviated them having to spend $5 million on Adam Frazier, right? If Nick Lofton, it can be a little bit better version of Adam Frazier. You don't go spend 5 on him. You don't spend 6 on Hunter Renfroe if Gavin Cross can come up and get it done. And then you got $11 million that you can go spend on one difference-making player, hopefully. And God forbid you develop your own pitching and you don't have to dole out for 2 more starting pitchers out there, right? Like they have to develop better. And I think once they develop better, they can sign better in the free agency. But they needed quantity as much as they needed quality.
Not to continue to raise my popularity on this podcast, but the organization that was always very good at that was the Cardinals. They would just continually have these 7th-round draft picks, and maybe they didn't turn to Matt Carpenter, but they turned it to John Jay. And that's 2 wins for a minimum salary for 3 years that you're not having to go into the market to pay for. So if you can develop your own 2-win guys, as you say, Soren, that frees up money on the payroll to buy your stars. And we talked the other day about stars and scrubs, and this is how you do it, but it's really about development. All of these teams with high payrolls, all of them, start with this core of homegrown players, whether it's the Yankees with Judge and, well, Torres, if you want to technically call Torres a homegrown player, Volpe, whether it's the Mets with Nimmo, and, first was the pitching in the middle of the decade, now it's Nimmo and guys like that. The Guardians, of course, always have that. You look at the Royals right now, it's Witt, it's Singer. I give him credit. You call Reagan's one of those homegrown guys. I think they got the best out of him. You got to figure out who are going to be the next guys around that. But that's where you start with. You don't start with how much money are we going to spend. We start with how cheaply are we going to get 20 WAR.
Yeah, and that's why when we had the discussion about the executive of the year, I mean, this is a flawed team right now, right? It's not the blueprint of how you wanted to put it together, yet he was able to tape it together. It's not a foundationally sound team that, like, yeah, for 5 years we're going to watch these guys. But I think what he was able to do for 1 year, that's why I brought that up as a talking point. But I think you're absolutely right. They do have to do it. And I would throw in Michael Massey. I think if he can stay healthy, that's the problem with his back this year a couple of times. But I think Michael Massey, the point I was trying to get to, Joe, let me ask you, Rany, because Joe and I don't think could land on the same level on this. I said, look, if you've got a $300+ million payroll, let's call it 4 or 5, because Joe's talking about how much they throw into the revenue sharing as well. And the Royals have a $120 million payroll. Yet here they are, all caught up, toe-to-toe, even Steven with the Yankees in this series. They weren't even.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Right.
You're right. If you saw tonight's game, the Yankees scored 3 runs and the Royals scored 2.
At the time,
you might be busy. I know you're a busy guy with the Chiefs and all, but
at the time of the conversation, it was 1-1, and that's not even fair because the Yankees won their division, they had a bye, all those things. My point was, so where is the value? Where did the Royals get it right to be this close to the Yankees, right? Like, and we couldn't. Joe and I and I didn't have as much time as I wanted with Joe. Usually I have more time with him, but we couldn't get to a common ground to get there. What do you think? What is the lesson to take away from how this Royals team, and not just about the payroll, but how they have gotten so close to the Yankees overnight? What's the lesson that everybody should be taking away?
I mean, to me, the lesson that I'm taking from not just the Royals, but like baseball in 2024, the big overarching lesson is that, strangely enough, as much as we can talk about like developing your core from within, but actually drafting or acquiring talent as amateurs, drafting, and Latin American, 16-year-olds you're signing, it's less important than ever. And taking existing players and making them better is really actually one of the keys to success. And we talk about the core of the Royals homegrown. Yeah, Bobby Witt. Okay, Bobby Witt may be a no-brainer, but you mentioned Cole Reagans. We'll include him. Cole Reagans is a guy who was a quadruple A pitcher that, like Joe said, projected as a number 5 when they got him. And Joe wasn't the only person who thought, oh, this guy, maybe he'll become a useful starting pitcher in the major leagues. The Royals took him, and 6 weeks later, in retrospect, he was a number 1 starter in the major leagues. That is modern baseball in a nutshell. This is what, the Rays have been doing for so long. This is what the Dodgers do in addition to spending all their money. In the case of the Dodgers, the downside is they take these pitchers, they make them great, and then they blow out their arms like 3 months later. So there's a cost to it on the Dodgers side. One of the things I think that really has helped the Royals this year, and I don't know if it's sustainable, but if it is, it's a hell of a trick, is not just to make pitchers better, but to keep them healthy while doing it. Because while we're seeing the Dodgers and, who started tonight's game? I mean, they with their season facing
Ryan Brazier.
Yeah, Ryan Brazier and a $300 million, took about a $300 million payroll.
I know.
And meanwhile, the Royals, Seth Lugo threw 200 innings this year. I mean, he struggled today, but it wasn't like he was like out, hurt or something. He's playing pitch against the Yankees. Cole Reagans gutted it out and gave up 1 run in 4 innings. He was 6 shutout against the Orioles. Like, they kept these guys healthy all season long, and they're still pitching well in the postseason. That, to me, if that's something that is not just a 1-year fluke, but a demonstrated skill that they can make pitchers better, but also keep them healthy, that to me is worth, like Joe was saying, that's worth $100 million of payroll right there.
Well, and I'll say, and I think this is part of the reason why the Yankees are having their struggles with their bats as well, but why the Royals are losing in the series right now is one of the things that really stands out to me is 3 premium bats that can take the ball over the wall together in your lineup. You have to have it. It's a minimum. We just saw the difference of when Vinny Pasquantino went down. When they had, Bobby Witt Jr., Salvador Perez, and Vinny Pasquantino. And Bobby Witt Jr. is brilliant and great. Part of his brilliance, though, isn't just raw bat skills and raw plate discipline, right? It's all the other things, the athleticism, the defense, the base running and things. But like having 3 bats that have 30 home run pop in a row is an important part of the equation. I think there's one thing that, and you mentioned the Cardinals, they may not have always had 30 homer, and the Royals don't either. I mean, I'm giving Pasquantino credit for having that kind of power. He's never done it in his career. But the Cardinals always were able to piece together 3, 4, maybe even 5 guys with 20 plus home run power. And that's the one thing that we were reminded, like, it's hard. It's harder with less money, for whatever reason you spend less money, but it's not as hard as this organization made it look for so many years. And when you put a few good hitters together, and then I think at least 3, if not 4 quality starters, which to Joe's point, they were remarkably healthy this year with some guys with 3s in front of their age. That's unlikely to continue. Younger pitching is more likely to stay healthy, but you've got to have the depth of starting pitching. And they got that this year, even though it wasn't the means with which you would ideally want them to. They had that. I think that's, it's not quite as difficult as it looks. And I think JJ Piccolo, quit trying to, I'll come back to something else. Rany, John Sherman said, and he got criticism for this at his press conference. Dayton was always talking about a championship club. I'd like to see what a wild card team looks like. And everybody took that like, this dumbass doesn't want to win a championship. He wants to have a wild card team. His point was Dayton is swinging for the fences for all these superstars, and we keep swinging and missing on guys because he's going for the superstar. And I'd had conversations that Dayton always wanted to take the highest upside guy. You got to have stars to win a championship, he'd say. And I think John Sherman's like, yeah, we just got a proliferation of good players, and you can get in there. Then let's see what happens once you get there. Exactly. He didn't phrase it well, but that's what he was getting at. I think we saw that come to
I mean, this year's team is the manifestation of that, philosophy. Yes. And JJ, to his credit, implemented that in a way that Dayton never could, and brought in, he didn't. I don't know if you call it a home run or just a ringing double, the Seth Lugo and Michael Wacha signings, but the point is, on offense, I mean, going out and getting Yuli Gurriel and Tommy Pham, like just get you through September, like just have, and then you get to October, and I mean, Garrett Hampson is like a postseason hero right now. Like, in a small sample size, anything can happen, but you have to get there first. And so, I mean, going forward, look, the Royals have one advantage the Yankees will never have, which is they play in the American League Central, right? Which means if they can continue to just be a little bit above 500, we will hopefully get more cracks at the New York Yankees in the postseason in the future, no matter what happens over.
Wait, why do you say that the Central is an advantage?
Because you're not going to have a team with a $300 million payroll.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
But I mean, that is part of it. I mean, that is one of the concessions baseball makes for the fact that there are going to be teams that have much larger payrolls than others.
Yeah.
And occasionally you get to play the worst team in baseball history 13 times.
Yeah.
Hey, well,
I want to go back to something that we talked about on this show over the offseason, which is this. Rany said over and over, okay, last year's team wasn't a 56-win team. We agreed on that. But it wasn't about getting to a 90-win team. It was build a 78-win team and get, lucky. I don't think that the pitching thing is sustainable. They maxed out those four guys this year. They were maxed out. They had four good position players per Zips projections. And until Pasquantino got hurt, all four of them were healthy all year. I don't think that trick is repeatable. I think they've got to build up the talent base, but it goes to what Rany said over the winter. You just want to get yourself in position to get lucky. And I think the Royals did that this year in a way that a lot of teams, the Pirates, the A's, the Marlins, some others, didn't try to do and don't try to do. So full credit for that. Rany was right over the winter. They just put themselves in position to have a lot of things go right. A lot of things went right, well, until tonight when they lost to the – enough they lost to the Yankees tonight.
Yeah, they did, and they may lose the series. Then again, they might win Game 4, and Cole Reagans might shove.
Are they going to go with Reagans?
Well, no, I think he means for Game 5.
Oh, yeah.
Game 5.
Yeah.
I said to you yesterday, I'm terrified of a Game 5 against Cole Reagans, even at the stadium. I want no part of like Reagans going into this, what is now a very strong bullpen to follow him. This is a great team because Juan Soto and Aaron Judge turned out to be Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth for a season. But around those guys, it's not a very good offense. And we've seen in this series, it's just we got 6 runs in Game 1, but 2 walks with the bases loaded that very fringy calls. There was a play at second base that ended up being the winning run that probably shouldn't have been the winning run. This is not, and they've scored 5 runs since then. I want no part of Cole Reagans.
Yeah, I will say this. I do think the bullpen, the Royals bullpen, is a little bit overplayed right now. It looks a lot better when everybody's running the marathon, right? But when you're lining up best on best, I don't know. Like Chris Bubich got beat today by Giancarlo Stanton, who, like we said, can hit the ball hard, but he doesn't hit as often as he used to. He's also a guy you can beat. And maybe that's the one bad pitch Chris Bubich is going to throw this entire postseason. But, I mean, we've been kind of wondering, is Bubich really this good? Is this guy a lights? Is this a closer of the future at 93 miles an hour? And, I don't know. And Angel Zerpa has been hot and cold, and they've settled into he's the first guy no matter what against the Yankees. They're bringing him in every time. And are they afraid of Daniel Lynch? And tomorrow they're going to have to put Daniel Lynch into the game and get knocked around. I am a little curious that the bullpen might not be quite as good as we think it's been, that it really shined when everyone was having to, take their turn. But now that it's best on best, we've been left wanting a little bit here a couple of times.
I'll snap call that trade. If you want to trade bullpens, snap call. Right now.
Well, especially after Luke Weaver threw what? Well, he only threw 20 pitches tonight because again, the Royals swing don't take pitches. But so the one question I have for you before we let you go, Joe, is Garrett Cole, because tomorrow's game is going to be kind of decided by who he is at this point. A year ago, if this game was being played, you told me we have to beat Garrett Cole to save our season. I'd be extremely concerned. My question is Garrett Cole? He missed the first half of the season with injuries. what is he now? Like you follow the Yankees a lot closer than we do. Is he still a legitimate ace? Can he be? Is he just like hot and cold, or is he somewhat diminished as a pitcher at this point?
I think he's on that next level down now. When you look at the injury at the start of the year, he never really got his command together until September. You saw the kind of the bad version of Cole in game 1 of this series. I think the range is fine. Like, could Garrett Cole go out and shove for 7 innings? Absolutely. But there's a downside to him that he didn't have at his peak in Houston. So that's the risk, I think, particularly with the long ball. And it's Kaufman, and the Royals don't hit homers, fine. But anybody in a major league lineup can run into one. That's the risk with Cole. Is that they're going to give up 2-3 homers, and now you're going to be down 4-1 in the third. And now we're talking about this bullpen that maybe we disagree on it. So that would be the concern. I think if Cole keeps it, didn't game 1 there was it Melendez hit the homer?
Yeah.
Help me out.
Yeah.
So
short porch.
I think that's what this is the thing that you've got to do to beat Garrett Cole. You've got to score your runs on the long ball. And I think that he can give them up even in this park. We saw Stanton go deep tonight. But if he's not giving up the long ball, he's very hard to beat. He's just more likely to do it now than he was 2-3 years ago.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, just give us your prediction. What happens in game 4? What happens is at the end of the series?
Sorry, guys, my internet is going out.
Yeah.
So I think I said Yankees in 4 to start the series. And yesterday on your show, I've expressed some concern about the way that the series has gone. I guess, I've said both Yankees in 4 and Royals in 5 at various times, because that's what I think the margin is. Like, whoever wins this series isn't winning it 70-30, 80-20. This is a 55-45 series. And right now, I think you've got to favor the Yankees. But to me, this is a 1-game series, because I don't want to see Reagan's again. Reagan scares the heck out of me. Talk about the range of possible starts for a guy. I mentioned it with Cole. Reagan's has a top end that's up there with any active pitcher in baseball, certainly any pitcher in these playoffs. He's the guy who can go out 7 innings, 93 pitch. He can do a Zach Wheeler start. So I'm still going to say Yankees in 4, but they have to treat tomorrow, to me, like game 5, because Reagan's, to me, is almost taking on that Mike Scott vibe, where you have to end the series before you see him again.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Okay, you guys heard it here first. Whoever wins tomorrow wins the series. So I think they should just cancel Saturday's game. Just save people on ticket prices.
SC is playing, so I just assume Yankees win and not have a game on Saturday.
Yeah, there you go. Fight on for the Trojans. Joe, always appreciate it. Thanks so much for the time. Thanks for riling up and pissing everybody off.
We're still friends, Joe. Barely.
We're still friends, but everybody watching this absolutely hates me. I'm going to have people tasting my food for the next month. Fellas, thanks. I listen to every episode. I love the show. People think I hate the Royals. I don't hate the Royals. I absolutely love this show. Thanks for having me on.
You're a kind man. We appreciate it, Joe.
Thanks,
we know
Joe.
that. There he goes. Joe Sheehan joining us here on the Kaufman Corner podcast. Of course, we're always brought to you by our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Get your seal coating done now before the weather turns cold. Weekends are booking up fast. With free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty, Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. All right, Rany, what do you think about Game 4? Or what haven't we covered about Game 3 that you want to get to?
I mean, I think we covered the big things, which is that Yankees expensive guys hit the ball really, really hard. Royals don't. But at the same time, that was it. It would be, I think, very facile to just blame this loss on the Yankees have more money than the Royals. I think the Royals, on some level, need to take a look in the mirror and say, we're not throwing enough strikes. I don't care how patient the Yankees hitters are. You should not be walking 7 batters a game in the playoffs.
Let me ask you on that subject before you go too far from it. I had some people tell me, listen, the Royals had the 10th most walks in baseball. They were like 6th in the American League for fewest walks. They were pretty good at throwing strikes, and now all of a sudden they're walking everybody. Some of that is the Yankees do it to you. Is some of that the umpires? I just want to ask you that. Have you been okay with the strike zone?
Well, today's game I thought was better, and that's why and today was the game they walked 9. I mean, again, they probably should have had Aaron Judge walk with 2 outs in the 7th, which would have brought Stanton up with 2 on and 2 out. And instead he was called out on a check swing, which was very borderline. So I think the first game of the series, which they also lost, like that one, we definitely had some issues with the umpires. I don't think I can blame today's game on the umpires. And the reality is, on some level, the more erratic you are with your pitches, the less likely you are to get the calls, right? Like you do bring some of that on yourself as well. So ultimately the Royals need to throw more strikes. I mean, I think you're talking about the bullpen. I think one of the issues is simply because they're not throwing strikes, they're having to use a lot more relievers in each game. I mean, they used 6 relievers today. Inevitably, you're going to find somebody who, doesn't have it going that day. And Chris Bubich I don't even know if it was a bad pitch. I mean, sometimes, they paid the other guy too, and this guy was paid $32 million. Sometimes you run into a hitter who hits the ball 114 miles an hour. So that happens. But really, in some level, it's amazing the Royals are where they are still, because they do not have an extra base hit in the postseason from either Bobby Witt or Vinny Pasquantino. Their number 2 and number 3 hitters do not have an extra base hit. And Bobby got it, maybe hopefully going today. He did walk after he struck out on a pitch way out of the strike zone early in the game. He was able to draw a walk in his 3rd plate appearance, and then he hit a hard single in his final plate appearance. I'm hoping that gets him going. I'm more concerned on some level with Vinny, in part because, I mean, as amazing as it is that he's playing, we have to acknowledge the possibility that he's playing with 9.5 digits, and that is probably contributing to why he's not playing that well. I mean, he's making, he's got good plate discipline. He's not striking out a ton. He's just not hitting the ball that hard, right? That ball in the 8th inning, which Bob Costas thought was a ringing double in the gap and was a floater into the second baseman's glove. Maybe he got fooled in part because, Vinny's bat speed was great on it. I think he just came off the end of the bat, but he's just, as Andy Reid would put it, he's just a tick off, right? We're just a tick off, but we're running out of time for him to get that tick going. And
yeah.
I think to me, tomorrow's game is going to be really, if any game is going to be determined by your stars going up against Garrett Cole with your season on the line. Tomorrow's the game where they need Bobby Witt and Vinny Pasquantino to play like, the stars of this lineup.
And I agree with what Joe was saying. I mean, this is not vintage Garrett Cole, and he's a guy that can be had. So
yeah.
The question is, can Michael Wacha, give you the length you need? And what do you expect the bullpen to be after Michael Wacha?
Well, I mean, this is the other thing I was going to say. I'm glad you brought that up. In addition to what they get from their stars and Garrett Cole, is the Royals have Michael Wacha going. It's not Lugo or Reagans, which means you have to, and this is an elimination game, and we have to see a level of urgency from Quatrero tomorrow that meets the urgency of the task, because you cannot afford to let Wacha get into a jam. You cannot afford to let him struggle. You cannot go into the game with the assumption that he's going to face more than 18 batters. And to his credit, in game 1, I think he faced 19.
You did.
Right? Like, but you may not even want to consider that many batters tomorrow. I do not understand what they're doing with Daniel Lynch, right? He is not only not pitched in the postseason, as far as I can tell, he has not warmed up. And I don't exactly know what's going on. I would like to see that the reason they didn't use him today was precisely because they see him piggybacking off of Wacha tomorrow, because he'd be kind of the perfect tandem. They both go 12 to 15 batters, and then you're in the 6th or 7th inning. That's what I would assume, except for the fact that I thought they would do that in game 1, and they did not. And frankly, that's part of the reason why they ended up losing that game, because they may have gone with Wacha too long, and they used a whole bunch of relievers not named Daniel Lynch. And if you want to face this Yankees lineup with a bunch of left-handed relievers, you have Daniel Lynch and you haven't used him yet. So I really hope we see him in the middle innings tomorrow, because this bullpen, they've got Ursig fresh, and Ursig, you have to go in assuming he's throwing at least 2 innings. And I have no compunction about using him in the 7th if the game dictates it. But to get to him, you need someone like Daniel Lynch to give you 2 innings in the middle of the game.
Blue and Mo says he did warm up tonight.
Okay. All right. We didn't see him on the broadcast, so
yeah.
don't know whether that's good or bad because at least they haven't forgotten him. But at the same time, I want him fresh for tomorrow now. So like, hopefully he'll be able to pitch tomorrow.
And by the way, George Brett's still with us. He was even on the broadcast. You know, I get what you're saying. You talk about we need some fire right here. You know, the fire of the '70s Royals Yankees. We need
I was trying to generate some of that on this show. I was trying to get you and Joe to fight, but we never got to.
Well,
we never got to fisticuffs. So.
Yeah, never got all the way there. No, I think. Listen, I think no more than 18 batters for Michael Wacha, even if he's dealing. I don't mind Daniel Lynch coming to the game, but I think it's no more than 9 batters for him. I don't want him seeing anybody twice because I think there's something they don't like about him. Otherwise, they would have pitched him. There's something that they don't think works in this series. Like they think they just spotted him in the right places, and that's kind of window dressing or something. I don't know, but I'm with you. I've wondered why he wasn't there. But and Vinny or Bobby's going to have to hit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one of them is going to have to come through. Like I don't think they can win a game even against Garrett Cole if he's kind of struggling without one of those guys coming through. So one of the big boys has to be big. I think it's clear. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say. I mean, I will say, Joe, the level of respect, if not fear, that Joe has for Cole Reagans kind of almost surprised me. Even like he legitimately, thinks the Yankees have to win this tomorrow because, like he said, even at Yankee Stadium, he is very worried about Cole Reagans, and that is a trump card the Royals have that the Yankees don't. Garrett Cole right now is somewhat diminished. So the point is, the Royals need to play like tomorrow, like their season is on the line, which it is. And hope the Yankees maybe don't, right? The one advantage to being down 2 games to 1 is that you can play like there's no tomorrow. Whereas the Yankees, they have a tomorrow no matter what. But if we can steal that game and then you get a day off to rest everybody and go with Cole for 6 innings or more on Saturday, we're still very much in this series.
Yeah. Oh, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And I do want to acknowledge this. Tony's mentioned this a couple of times, I think, or somebody else did as well. Apparently, Hurricane Milton has ripped the roof off Tropicana Field down in Tampa. So, thinking about the folks down there, it's going to be another big one down there and a lot of damage, it looks like. So, all right, that's going to do it for us. We will see. We'll be back at it. We got to discuss. I don't know if the series ends. I don't know that there's a reason to chat until Sunday. So we'll just be robbing our Sunday. But if we're headed for a game 5, we'll see what we have to do. Just keep a look at our Twitters and see what we got coming out, and we'll see when we're going to go at it again. And Randy promises to bring on somebody that will upset the fan base more than Joe Sheehan.
Not sure that's possible.
We're always brought to you by our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. You can find them online at GannAsphalt.com. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warranty, whether you own a business or manage a business. If you got any parking lot issues, Gann Asphalt and Concrete can solve them. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. For the good Dr. Rany Jazayerli, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much. And for our friend Joe Sheehan, we say thank you very much for joining us here on the Kaufman Corner Podcast.